Chefs of Reddit, what common cooking rule that everyone follows is actually complete BS? No matter how thin you slice garlic, it is not going to turn into liquid in the pan. I blame Goodfellas for this myth. Some people think they put that scene in the movie on purpose, as a subtle hint that these mobsters half the time have no clue what they're actually talking about. No 10-minute recipe takes 10 minutes. 30 if you're lucky. Cook time, 10 minutes. Prep time, an hour and a half. Stop treating recipes like scripture. You're allowed to adjust things to your own taste. Use a little less onion if you want. Swap the habanero for a jalapeno. Leave the cilantro out entirely. Whatever. If it tastes good to you, and maybe to the people you're feeding, I genuinely could not care less what Alton Brown thinks about it. That said, Alton Brown's still the man. I always make a recipe exactly as written the first time, just to learn what it's supposed to be, then tweak it for us after that. I'm good enough to fix other people's recipes, but building one from scratch? Yeah, not nearly as good at that. Wash your damn mushrooms. More people need to see this. Mushrooms are basically water already. Rinsing the dirt off the outside isn't going to make them any wetter than they're about to get when you cook them. Honestly, of all the knife skills out there, most people only need one: knowing how to actually hold the knife and control it. Nobody at home is dicing 5 onions back to back or running through a whole bunch of celery. Sure, cutting fast is convenient, but it's way more important to go at your own pace, calm and safe. You don't need any pro techniques for this. Adam Ragusia has a great video on it. Sped up, it looks like he's flying through it with his fingers right under the blade. But at normal speed, you can see he's careful and methodical, making about 1 cut every 3 seconds. Not exactly a rule, but a lot of home cooks have this thing with seasoning. They're scared of it. Just season your food, for the love of God. My wife can't watch me cook. If she sees me, she says I'm over-salting it. But if she doesn't see me, I quietly add more salt. And then she tells me how delicious it turned out. The myth that you have to click your tongs 3 times before using them. 1 or 2 clicks and I'm doing just fine. Thanks. Not really a rule, but the idea that you sear meat to seal in the juices is a total myth. Searing is great. It just does something completely different than people think. Basically, searing is just the Maillard reaction. The amino acids and sugars turn into that browned, caramelized crust. The whole sealing in the juices thing is nonsense. Adding oil to pasta water is pointless. It won't stop the noodles from sticking. And I don't care that Gordon Ramsay does it. This is true. If anything, the oil probably just keeps the sauce from clinging to the pasta properly. You only run into sticking if you don't finish the pasta in the sauce, when you just pour thin sauce over plain cooked noodles. Do it right and toss it together at the end, and the oil doesn't matter at all. It just becomes part of the sauce that soaks into the pasta. For the record, I'm a former cook. So many people are scared of MSG. A lot of that fear honestly grew out of anti-Chinese sentiment and bias. It's totally fine, and it makes almost anything taste better. I use it like salt, just less of it, because the flavor's pretty intense. Washing chicken is the worst habit. You're not cleaning it. You're spraying bacteria all over your kitchen, instead of leaving it in one place where it'd get killed during cooking. People cling to this one hard. I've gotten into so many arguments about it. And it almost always ends with them going, "Yeah, maybe it's wrong, but I'm used to washing it, so I'm going to keep doing it anyway." Their funeral, I guess. Back when I worked at a pizza place, I realized working without gloves is actually safer. With gloves, the cross-contamination risk is higher. We always had a sink right there so you could just wash your hands easily. I remember this from the COVID days. I'm not in food service, but I had coworkers who'd wear the same pair of gloves basically all day. Or 1 pair before lunch and 1 after. They never washed their hands, just touched door handles with the gloves. Then their own stuff. The tables. Their phones. Everything. I'm sure they were spreading more germs that way, not fewer. Your pasta water should be as salty as the sea. First of all, the sea is way saltier than you think. And second, if you actually salt your water to that level, the pasta will be completely inedible. Interesting point for pasta. Yeah, it's too much for that, but I've had potatoes boiled in seawater, and they were honestly pretty great. Fresh vegetables might taste better to you, but frozen ones often have more nutrients and are generally healthier. Fresh produce is usually picked underripe and finishes ripening during shipping and storage. Once it's picked, it doesn't gain any new nutrients. It actually burns through the ones it has to keep ripening. Frozen veg is usually harvested at the end of the season, fully ripe right off the plant. The exception is farmers' markets and stuff, straight from the garden. There's no one right or authentic way to cook. Cuisines change constantly. Borders move. People migrate. Tastes evolve. And the techniques change right along with them. So relax, have fun, and cook it however it tastes best to you. Also, if something tastes underseasoned, that doesn't always mean it needs more salt. It might be missing acid, sweetness, bitterness, or umami. It's about balancing flavors. When I'm adjusting, I usually start with acid, because it's the easiest to fix if I overdo it, then go from there. I'm not a chef, just someone who worked in food service. Food doesn't magically become cleaner just because it was handled with gloves instead of bare hands. Trust me, staff change gloves way less often than you'd think, and they definitely aren't washing their hands before every glove change. In fact, I'm pretty sure there are studies showing people in gloves wash their hands less and cross-contaminate more. When you've got gloves on, your hands don't feel dirty. But barehanded, you feel every bit of stickiness and grime, so you're constantly washing them. When I worked in a restaurant, I washed my hands every 5 minutes, if not more, while the glove people could go hours. You tell me which is more sanitary. Cooking a piece of meat by weight, like 20 minutes per pound, is a bad idea. Cook to temperature. Just buy a thermometer. Being scared of wooden cutting boards for hygiene reasons is a weird one. Some people I know switch to glass boards because of it, but glass is just miserable and unsafe to cut on. The knife slides everywhere. Salting your eggs ahead of time doesn't do anything bad to them. I have no idea where the myth came from that they'll turn gray and watery. They won't. Getting your cast iron screaming hot for a steak. Bad advice. All you do is fill the kitchen with smoke and scorch the surface of the meat. Better to keep it just below the fat's smoke point, around medium-high. Take your steak out 30 minutes before cooking so it comes to room temperature. In reality, that takes hours. I tested it. Even after 4 hours, it was still around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Eventually, I just gave up and went to bed. All you're really doing is letting moisture collect on the surface and ruining your sear. Don't bother. Chicken doesn't have to hit 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You can pull it around 155 and let it carry over after it's off the heat. As long as it holds above about 150 for at least a minute, the bacteria are already dead. Every chef I know says you can just brush the dirt off mushrooms. Yeah, no. I wash mine properly underwater. Doesn't affect the taste or texture one bit. I pretty much double the garlic and seasoning in any recipe. I have a friend who's Italian, and she says, add garlic until you can hear your ancestors whisper, enough. I don't have a drop of Italian blood, and I've never once heard her ancestors whisper anything. But I think about it constantly now, whenever I cook with garlic. The 2 cups of water to 1 cup of rice rule does not work for me at all. I usually go about 1.5 to 1. They say you have to salt and squeeze eggplant to get the bitterness out. I never do, and I cook it pretty often. Sweet balances spicy. Nah, those are 2 completely different things. Sweet and acid actually balance each other out. Sweet and heat don't. In Chinese cooking, stir-frying in a wok usually starts with frying garlic and ginger in oil. Smells amazing, but a big chunk of that flavor just evaporates or burns off. If you add them later, in with the vegetables when the heat's less brutal and more even, you keep way more of the flavor in the dish. If you do something wrong, but you like how it turns out, then you did it right. Like your steak medium? Great. I go rarer, but that doesn't make your way worse. Like your scrambled eggs a little browned? Go for it. As long as it's safe and doesn't hurt anyone else, everyone's allowed to eat what they like. Don't cook with wine you wouldn't drink. I've been cooking with cheap wine like Franzia for years, and it comes out absolutely delicious. I don't use the salted cooking wine, but a normal cheap bottle is totally fine. Save the good stuff for your glass. I'm not a chef, just a home cook who loves barbecue. But there are a few truths in the barbecue world that need to die. First, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. Supposedly every time you open the lid, the smoker loses so much heat, it wrecks your cook time. In reality, most of the heat is stored in the body of the smoker, not the air inside it. That's exactly why good models are made of thick steel and cheap ones aren't. Briefly opening the lid barely affects anything. The temperature recovers fast. Second, spritzing the meat with apple juice, cider, water, whatever. Any moisture on the surface cools the meat through evaporation and just adds to your cook time. It also gets in the way of the bark, which needs a dry surface. And it doesn't make the meat juicier. That comes from fat and collagen, not water. The flavor payoff is minimal. Also, beer-can chicken is the dumbest thing you can possibly do. Pouring liquid inside the bird wrecks the surface area to mass ratio, so it cooks slower and unevenly, and you end up choosing between undercooked meat and a bone-dry breast. Plus, the paint on the can and the plastic lining inside aren't meant to be heated with your food. If you want beer flavor, put it in a marinade or a brine. Stuffing inside a turkey is even worse because people actually eat it. By the time it heats up to a safe temperature, after soaking up all the juices, the meat itself is already overcooked. And the standard way of roasting a whole bird isn't great either. It's way better to spatchcock it. Cut it open and flatten it out. It cooks more evenly, browns better, the temperature's easier to control, and the skin gets crispier. Oh, and besides salmonella, there's also Campylobacter. It's actually more common and just as nasty. People just talk about it less. Thanks so much for watching. Drop your favorite dishes in the comments. What's the one thing you love most? Let us know. And don't forget to subscribe. Catch you tomorrow.